I had a relationship in New York with a man named Charles Wormser in the mid-80s. Charles Wormser owned a company with John Ford and partners called New Netherlands Coin Company. Now, it was Ford's money, it was Wormser's money and Ford being the hot shot, but it was Wormser's business originally. And when they broke up their business, Ford took half the inventory, Wormser kept the other half, and just put it in the bank.
This was in the 50s.
60s. Anyway, so I would go to New York dutifully, 2-3 times a week when I'm in New York, go see Paul, do my business with Paul, go see Lester Merkin. Lester and I were always buddies. The problem about seeing Lester in the morning was we always had to do a shot of whiskey this big in the morning, and it fucked me up in the morning. I still had to do it. Yeah, because if you didn't, it wasn't good. And Lester introduced me to Charles Wormser, who was a lovely man, a very elegant looking man with a very close fit. He looked like a Commodore. He really looked like what you would see as a Commodore. And he was very elegant, and of course here, me, Kevin, with the elegant guy. We would go to the Harvard Club for lunch once a week, a lovely man. And he started selling me his coins, a little bit at a time. And actually, I remember I sold a lot of the nickels a day, so many pennies, so many inconsequential stuff. Charles got very ill, he had Alzheimer's and passed away. And his wife came to me and said, Charles wanted to sell you the coins. And with the blessing of one, who's the guy that just passed away that Tony built the great colonial collection for? In Williamsburg. Come on, guys.
Oh, Joe Lasser.
Joe Lasser, who was their financial guy, ended up buying all of their images. Now, their collection I sold in Beverly Hills under the auspices of the Buddy Epson collection. Most people never knew that. But every coin up to $3 gold piece in the Buddy Epson collection was this incredible inventory.
Buddy Epson didn't flip coin? Oh, yeah.
He did. He had some.
But he had
a Stella. He had maybe 50
coins.
And I'll never forget when the Goldbergs in the market had Buddy Epson there signing autographs. And I said, I got to sign my catalog for it. It was very nice collection. He was fun. And these were the kind of things that happened to me. And then in '89, 89 actually was my most difficult time. I made the mistake after doing the Wormser deal, living in Beverly Hills and life being very good, of thinking I was wealthy. And it wasn't so much that I spent money like crazy, but I was a little complacent at a very inappropriate time in my life. I was 29, and Hugh talked me into doing the coin fund with me. And I thought it was a great idea at the time. And then a lot of things happened that were bad for me at that same time. I had my lawsuit with Greenware Coin Galleries, which was a fabulous lesson for me. At the time, in the early 80s, New England was selling, after Jimmy had sold the company, they were selling coins retail at exorbitant markups, and I was providing them with their coins. And I, in my infinite wisdom as a young man, made a deal with their buyer who approached me to split the profits with him on the coins that I sold them. And that came back to haunt me in a terrible way. I ended up settling my lawsuit with the bankruptcy of the company for about $1.3 million, plus it cost me about $500,000 in legal fees. So it was like $1.8 million in 1989. The market turned to crap, and I had all my capital working in a rope chain factory in the Dominican Republic, which was a brilliant idea. That we don't even need to go there with that shit. But it was just, I made my several big mistakes all at once. And that was the only time in my life that financially I was on the downside. But it was a great time for it to happen to me. Because I was 29, I thought I knew everything, and I'd yet to been slapped across the face. I'm a real advocate of believing that people that are successful and do things, and until they're smacked once to learn a great lesson about the realities of business and life, I really truly believe they grow up to be bitches. That's my own credo. There's very few of us that are capable of going through life without learning lessons. Not to stroke him, but the one, the man that I consider better than me, Mr. Alvin, is one of the few men that I know my entire life that has kept his credo intact forever. Not to stroke John, who's not here, but I truly feel that way. And I'm sure you see it the same way. He's a very special man. And I had a tough time. I had to sell myself into slavery. I requested all my capital was tied up in 1990 after I had to leave the coin fund. The Scaniers, we weren't making any money. I went to work with the Goldbergs for a while, which was a very joyous occasion. 18 months. The worst part was, the really part, other than I didn't mind, because I made a lot of money and everything was building up quickly. There's a couple of things I minded about living with Goldberg. Every damn time I was out socially with Ira, we had mutual friends, the first words that would come out of the asshole's mouth were, "This is Kevin Lipton who works for me." Drove me crazy. So that was really hard for me, but it was like, this was all soul building stuff for me. My wife and I, that's the only time in my life that my wife and I had a really difficult time in our relationship. So everything was right at the time. I was 30 years old, my kids were little, my marriage was really rocky, my finances for the only time in my life seemed perilous ever. But I put my head down and I worked through it, and the rope chain business I ended up giving away for zero. That was the funniest thing. Let me tell you about the rope chain business. It's actually very funny. Unless we're running late on time.
No.
The rope chain business is very funny. What happened was, I went up one day to Minnesota because I'd been watching on TV them hawking coins on TV for the first time in my life. And the company's name was CVN. So I called this guy up. I said, "Hey, I'm Kevin Lipton. If you're not buying coins for me, you're just stupid." So I go up there, and I talk to this guy, John Zaragoza at CVN. And he goes, "You know what, Kevin?" He goes, "We're happy with our coin suppliers." He goes, "What about coin jewelry? You do coin jewelry?" I said, "Of course." So he goes, "Go bring me a sample and we'll try and sell coin jewelry." So I said, "Fine." So I ran home. We went downtown. We found, the local Armenians downtown to make up every different kind of bezel for all the 1/10 coin. And I brought them up to them. They say, "Wow, these are great. I'll take 1,000 of those, 500 of those." And in about 6 months, I sold these guys $7 million worth of this shitty coin jewelry. So now I'm a coin jewelry dealer besides being a coin dealer. And these guys we're dealing with downtown were having trouble getting right delivered as needed. So we figured the only way to solve this problem is to buy a jewelry company. So we buy a jewelry company, and a week after I buy this jewelry manufacturing company, CVN gets bought out by QVC, and at the time, the guy that owned QVC was the ex-president of Franklin Mint and wanted nothing to do with coins. I'm there with Mr. Stephen Deeds at the time, who was working with me, and we were doing great. He'd been going to Europe twice a month. We were the second biggest importers of double eagles for about 3 years after Heritage. This was before Yaffe was doing it, before the Brads were doing it. We were just bringing tons and tons of coins and just doing great. And he said, "You know what? Now this, the market was getting a little slow." And he goes, "They have a rope chain business. Let's go into the rope chain business." I go, "Okay." So we ended up, I'll never forget it. We had a factory in the Dominican Republic with about 400 people. We would send them gold, and they'd sit there making their little handmade gold rope chain all day long. Here's the best part about it. You guys will love this business. Here's the rope chain business. Your gross margins over melt are about 12%. So what you would do is, everyone in the jewelry business got 30 to 60 days to pay. So for every $200,000 worth of stuff you're invoicing these guys all throughout this industry, they're getting $175,000 in cash. How many of them